We all have stories. Stories inspired by culture, competition, creativity. Stories show our humanity. They inspire us to greatness and remind us to be humble. Stories connect us to our communities and the rest of the world. We are the Chutta people, and these are our stories. See and share them at togetherwe'remore.com.
It's caught Hollywood! Lights! Camera! Action! Hollywood Brown! CD Lamb still running! Hits a corner! CD! For the TD!
People don't know what it is to be champions. Oklahoma invented it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Through the Keyhole. It's an Oklahoma football podcast. I am Brady Trantham, joined alongside three of the four horsemen. No, the Oklahoma City Thunder are not playing. They just finished the first round last night, but Matt Burton said, nah, I'm out. I don't care on Tuesday. I'm sure he has something important to do, so we miss Matt. But I'm joined by, like I said, two of the four horsemen, me being the third one. Let's start with Mr. Peyton Guthrie. Peyton, you are back after, when was the last time you were on Keyhole?
That I would not entirely know for sure, but it feels like a very, very long time.
Well, we welcome you back.
Good to be back. Good to be back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, now you haven't been completely absent from the Through the Keyhole experience. Our patrons got to see your awesome post-spring game thoughts with some video clips on our Patreon, patreon.com/through the keyhole, and you can join for free for a month. So go check that out if you are interested in extra football stuffs. But yeah, you can go check out Peyton's spring game thoughts. But because he hasn't been on the show for a few weeks, and frankly, because there's not that much OU football stuff to talk about anyway, we will ask Peyton some more spring game thoughts later on in the show. The other horseman, Mr. Alan Kinney. Alan, how are we doing?
Doing great, man. Enjoying the NBA playoffs here and whatever we can scrape together to talk about with OU football.
How is, knowing where you live, how is your security level? Could I just barge in and run into your house right now? Or is it relatively safe?
My guess is you wouldn't get much farther than the door if I just had to guess.
Alan, we're on the same show. Let me in.
And you'd probably be at least a floor above me. So I'd be nice and, nestled away. Probably have my Secret Service Praetorian guards there to shuttle me out. And I probably would have very little idea of what was going on if I had to guess.
Another reason why you need a larger ballroom, so we need we need more patrons. We need more patrons so Alan can have a large ballroom so he can
absolutely do
ball stuff. I don't know. Alan knows ball. That's where he would do it in the room. We want to thank our wonderful, very awesome, very attractive, emotionally, physically, in all the ways that you can be attractive sponsors. That would be the Choctaw Nation, our title sponsor, togetherwe'remore.com. Go there for Peyton's other main gig, his main work. Big reason why he's not been able to be on Keyhole the last handful of weeks because he's been a busy working person. So go check that out for some awesome stories. Anything new, Peyton?
Right now we have the same one up this month. We're about to switch it over. I believe. Oh man, you would ask me. Let me open up togethermore.com. Right now, we've got featured Natalie Aguilera, who is the CEO of the Native American Health Center in Oakland, California. Very, very cool story of running that. It's been within her family. And then next month, if you're an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, this might be actually a very good read for you next month. Next month, we are featuring Baxter Holmes, ESPN investigative writer, out in LA, but also was, I believe, the main producer for the E60 Oklahoma Standard documentary that just came out a few days ago. So go read that on the 1st of May. Go check it out. Oklahoma's own Baxter Holmes on that side.
Oh yeah, we need to pump that one. A lot of Thunder fans have been all over Baxter Holmes's work, not just recently with the documentary, but over the last handful of years. Really phenomenal ESPN writer with Oklahoma roots, OU roots. So that's exciting. I have yet to
award winner.
Oh wow,
which I didn't know. Not for
I can't even I can't even grow a beard. So, I mean, congratulations. I've not watched the documentary yet. I've seen all the clips that have been making the rounds on social media. It is really surreal to see. I mean, even Russell, it's really surreal to see these players that no longer play for the Thunder anymore, and they're still in the league. And Kevin Durant is still technically in the postseason with a chance to technically still move on in the postseason. It's really weird to see them talk about their time with the Thunder in the past tense. Like, we're getting closer and closer to the days where maybe, probably not Kevin, but definitely Russell Westbrook will be sitting courtside for some Thunder like playoff games 5, 6, 7 years from now, every once in a while. Like, that's so weird to me. We've come a long way. Then, of course, our other title sponsor, Kaizen Performance Gym, the best gym in Norman and more. If you're in the area and you're looking to get some positive change in your life, physically, emotionally, mentally, go check out Kaizen Performance Gym, the best place on earth, next to Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, of course. And Garrison would probably agree. And then, of course, like I already mentioned, patreon.com/through the keyhole. It helps with the entire function here, the whole get up, the whole show. We appreciate our patrons that continue to help support us, even during the dog days of the summer and the off season when news is very sparse. But that's why we try to put out something every week, in addition to some other fun, goody stuff on Patreon. And then, of course, keyholepod.com, the free website where you can find Alan's writings as well. And also, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We would greatly appreciate it, and it would help the show out. So it is what it is. NFL draft. And let me also mention this. I've addressed this in the film review video, which we put out a few hours ago on Patreon. That will be exclusive to the film tier patrons for the first 24 hours. And then we'll make it free for all patrons. Not free for everybody, but free for all of our patrons after 24 hours. It's the spring game. It was 2 weeks ago. We haven't put out a film review in a while. This is our side gig. So life and main gigs take precedent. So wanted to give something extra for our patrons to munch on. And it was just me diving into John Mateer. But I mentioned it in that video. It's my studio. I'm not in my kitchen anymore. I'm still kind of working around in this room. So if my audio is a little echoey, I'm sorry. But there's not a lot of stuff in here other than my desk. But let's get into the NFL draft, gentlemen. Oklahoma sends 7 players to the draft. I believe that is tied with 5 or 6 other teams for 5th in the country. For context, Ohio State had 11. They led the nation with 11 draft picks. Alabama had 10. Texas had 9 or 8. I can't remember. The Big Ten overall had the most first-round picks, but the SEC by far had the most overall draft picks over the Big Ten. And I believe that this is like the 17th or 18th year in a row that the SEC has produced the most NFL draft picks of all the other conferences, which is really to the surprise of no one. The quick facts are Mason Thomas to the 2nd round of the Chiefs. Fabechi Wiwu goes before Grayson Halton. Fabechi goes to Houston in the 4th round. Grayson Halton also in the 4th round goes to San Francisco. Kendall Daniels in the 5th round to the Atlanta Falcons. A happy surprise. I was afraid Kendall might slip further than 5th and perhaps not even be drafted for all I knew. And then the trio of Robert Spears-Jennings, Jaron Kanik, and Deion Burks go in the 7th round. RSJ to Pittsburgh, Jaron Kanik to Tennessee, Deion Burks to the Indianapolis Colts. So before we get into some specific guys, specific talking points, Alan, I'll start with you. Any kind of general takeaways from OU's relatively happy day at the NFL draft?
Oh, I thought that the big surprise to me was Kendall Daniels. You mentioned it going in the 5th round. That's not Kendall Daniels is a very intriguing prospect. I mean, so they're clearly kind of buying on the upside there. And I think that he made himself actually a lot of money, did a lot of good for himself coming to OU for that final season, getting out of that scheme that he was playing in there at Oklahoma State, getting into a, system that would really kind of accentuate what he does best. So that was an interesting one because I just figured he probably would not be drafted. But otherwise, Deion Burks slipping, I think that was the story that people were following. I guess Favechi Wiwu must have done himself a lot of good through, kind of the combine process and the interviews, because he went up there a lot quicker than I expected. But, all in all for OU, I think it's just to me, it's just a sign again about slowly but surely, Brent Venables and OU's front office have really kind of, patched up the roster, got it to a place where OU's more, OU's team looks like the kind of team that can be more competitive with the upper echelon of college football.
Absolutely. It's trending in the right direction. Peyton, did you have any individual or general thoughts from the 7 drafted?
Mainly just mine's like a larger like push on that side. Obviously Jaron Cannett getting drafted period is like good for him, good football guy, special teams dude. But is that like an actual pick? But he's got it in there. But to me, it is you're trending in a good direction for OU. Now, this isn't where I would like to see OU completely, right? Only 1 second-day pick and a bunch of 4th and 5th,
Right.
7th round picks. You want to see that to be some a first rounder, some seconds and thirds, that shows like a health of a roster. But this is a pretty good bounce back based on some like previous years where Oklahoma has been. And I think you're just seeing the overall depth of talent. That was the one thing I mentioned. I believe it was this entire last year. I kept hitting home of Brent was able to solve any coaching missteps or mishaps he may have had by just having a deep football team. Right? Like, hey, we could handle this. We can rotate people in and out. You're not really having that much of a drop off. To me, that's good because I think you've had some recruiting classes and some stuff coming in on the backside of it. This isn't like an A&M where they lost 10 guys, so they were supremely talented, it seems. But the moment they played anyone with a pulse, they kind of got shit canned. So, it's like, where is this? And to me, that maybe calls them forward. Like everyone's like, Elko's super coach, and it's like, well, he had all this talent, and he wasn't able to put anybody away who was a good football team. Like,
And it was
hard
talent
for me to square some of that. But
it was
I'm
talent
seeing
where
Oklahoma outproduce its talent profile, in my opinion. So I don't know. There's 2 good things here. Oklahoma was able to go 10-2, lost 7 draft picks, but most of them were in the later rounds off of a talented football team, which to me thinks in 2026, this upcoming fall season, the team should just be holistically, and they may be able to synergize. They may just be a better football team, top to bottom. So,
yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, it was for A&M, it was talent where you wanted the talent to come from, because sometimes,
for sure.
And we'll get into this in terms of like where the program has, like where it came from under Brent Venables in his first year to where it is now and where it could potentially be going in terms of the NFL talent. For A&M, they had the talent on the offensive line. I believe they had a few more offensive linemen go in the previous draft, but they've had talent in the trenches. They've had talent to skill positions. They have talent at tight end, just basically everywhere except for quarterback. That's been the one that has eluded them. And it's probably one of the major reasons why whenever they did play somebody with a pulse, because I'm not a big fan of was it Marcel Reed? Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Like at least John Mateer had the injury excuse. Marcel Reed had no excuse. He just turns the ball over a lot. Like he just enjoys doing it. And so, yeah, it seems a little bit more harsh when you look at the talent that a program like A&M has and you look at their results. But going back to that original point of where the program has come under Brent, because look, he's been criticized for this, but you can also explain it away in terms of his first year, guys. He goes 6-7, like we all remember in 2022. Well, in that 2023 draft, they have 5 players drafted: Anton Harrison, Marvin Mims, Braden Willis, Wanya Morris, and Eric Gray. So, I mean, what do they all have in common? They're all offensive players. And it was year 1 of Brent Venables. So it makes a lot of sense that Lincoln Riley, the previous head coach, had a bunch of leftover talent, NFL talent, that Brent Venables coach. Did he develop? I mean, you could probably say Eric Gray was the most benefited from Brent Venables' coaching because he just got the workhorse carries probably the major reason why he got drafted in the first place after that last season at OU. But at the end of the day, like Brent basically got to preside over 5 players that ended up getting drafted. He gets credit for it, but they were Lincoln Riley players. Let's just call it what it is. And so you can sit there and say, why did they go 6 and 7 with that much talent? But this conversation is not about that season, but those questions still existed. But from there, you go into the 2024 draft, and I believe there are 3 players taken. Then the 2025 draft last year, 2 players, Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman. And so, Alan, to me, it just seems like this doesn't happen all the time whenever programs change head coaches, but in the manner that OU went from Lincoln Riley to Brent Venables, like you're asking Brent Venables or whomever the next head coach would have been to do more than just right the ship, win games, compete. Brent had to fix a reputation. He had to fix a complete other side of the ball while trying to maintain the reputation of the other side of the ball, which was one of the best in college football. So it was quite the tall task. So when you see like the 5 guys drafted, which is, pretty good for a blue blood program, maybe not the standard, but it's, it's okay. And then immediately fall down to 3 and then 2 and then jump back up to 7. To me, that just seems like, he's been here coaching the program now. He's had enough time to develop his guys that he recruited either in the portal or he recruited out of high school. And now you're seeing the fruits of that labor. Like, it takes time to truly see, like, is someone doing a good job or are they just kind of lucky? And as it stands right now, even though the overall record might not suggest it, Alan, like, it does seem like Brent Venables is doing a very good job of developing the talent that he's brought into the program.
Well, what we're really seeing in my mind is kind of, that battleship slowly turning. I mean, a lot of programs have done well by going out and, essentially just, renting or buying a bunch of players from the transfer portal, bringing them in. I mean, and you can do that, but you're kind of relying on what's out there in the portal every single year. How are you competing? What kind of offers you can make, that type of thing. It's a little bit different when you're able to sustain those guys through, kind of homegrown experience. You look back at it too. And I think it was, the 2022 draft I'm looking at here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So, you had 7 players drafted. That was before Brent Venables, the year before Brent Venables took over, or, after Lincoln Riley's final year. So again, he had an outflow of talent, I think is one way to look at it too, right before he took the job. So there was a lot that going on there. You mentioned, yes, he had to get the defense back up to speed. And I think that has played a big part also, though, in stockpiling the talent on that side of the ball. But, all in all, I feel like, the development, you could say, on the offense side hasn't necessarily been as great, but I do feel like they have a better idea, or they've done a good job of replenishing the roster to this point, and it's also something that's sustainable year to year.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton, how do you see it? I mean, are you a little bit more bullish on it? Are you as optimistic as kind of what Alan and I are kind of looking at? Or, I mean, how do you see it?
I see it as a proof of concept because I think there's some other programs that would have pulled the trigger. On like, okay, Brent, sorry, we tried, Oklahoma guy, it just didn't work out right. We got, and even when Oklahoma extended Brent Venables by, I think it was a year, and that got like a lot of pushback from media types and stuff. Because again, it was more signaling to like recruits and stuff. It will be interesting to see how well this momentum's able to go. I think Alan mentioned in our show notes of almost all of these guys were high school prospects. Only one of them was a transfer, I believe. Yeah.
I think, there were, okay. So there were 4 high school players, 4 of the 7 were high school players. 2 were transfers, but they were in the program for multiple seasons. Yeah. And then you had one who was a 1-year rental. That was Kendall Daniels, like I mentioned.
Yes. And Kendall Daniels gets drafted on like a physical prospect, probably more than anything.
That and his year at OU. Like, if he had just stayed at Oklahoma State, he's probably not getting drafted.
Yeah. So I think it's very good to see. I also don't know how much weight to put into it now that there's a it's not brand new now, but this next year, I think 2027 will be the first like fruits of that labor, so to speak, of the new GM system, of the new scouting department, of the new roster management side of OU football. On that side, since we had 4 of the 7 who are already from high school, 2 more of them have been in the program for a while before Nagy was able to put some fingerprints on the roster on that side of it. But this is a this is a lagging indicator of talent and of like how the teams were to go. So I think OU performed to 10-2. When you look at the Southeastern Conference, I think had like 87 draft picks or something like that. It was like a conference record. Being able to get a 10-2 record off of one of the hardest schedules in SEC last year, at least conference, while having only one high draft pick. I don't know if that speaks a lot to the coaching or a lot of different things, but I think it speaks to a lot of really talented underclassmen that have yet to reveal itself in a future draft. So I think the future is bright for it. This is a right direction to move forward. But to Alan's point, the ship has fully turned. A lot of teams would have pulled the trigger early and, doomed a little bit of like a cycle and repeat, like a couple more years of bad draft results. But
Yeah,
I do think we're starting to see potentially a run of, I don't know if you remember, it's during the Bob years and stuff where it's like Oklahoma has had X amount of years straight of at least 4 draft picks or something like that. And it went for about like 10, 12 years or something. I think we could be getting back to that sort of consistency and stability. I mean, only this year in the for an NFL draft history, Alabama passed Oklahoma for the most draft picks in SEC conference for all the SEC teams. OU was number 1 before this draft, and now they're like 2 behind. So I think this is a good chance for Oklahoma to kind of reclaim that and keep putting talent in the NFL. And I would probably assume Alabama will kind of drip down from that historic run that they had.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote about this on Sooners on SI. Going back to 2014, OU put out an average of 5 players in each draft, and they had a few drafts where they were putting 7 or 8 guys, and I believe the most was the 2019. So the year Kyler went number 1, they sent 8 to the NFL draft. And as you got deeper into that 10-year period, as we all know, unfortunately, 98% of those draft picks were on one side of the ball. So it makes it all the more incredible that if you say 8 guys got drafted in the 2019 draft with those defenses, that basically means that 7 or 8 guys from that offense got drafted. Of the 11 players on the field, all of them got drafted. So stupid amount of talent on one side of the ball for OU. But yeah, I mean, looking ahead, I also wrote this on Sooners and SI, so let me keep plugging myself. But you can look at this like in terms of the 2027 draft. If you're talking about the big picture of Brent Venables and the turning the ship around, as Alan characterized it, I don't think it's that fanboyish of a take to look at what OU is returning, who's draft eligible, and sit there and say, I expect like the low end to be 6 or 7 guys drafted next year. And if a few other guys have seasons that meet the realistic expectations that a lot of us have, they could have 8 or 9 guys drafted. It would not shock me if that would be the case. I mean, Peyton, you'd already mentioned, like the highest player being a 2nd round picking at a few 4th and a 5th and a 3 7th round picks. So OU also had a bunch of very talented underclassmen that outperformed maybe their expectations in 2024 and 2025, which is why OU was as good as they were last year. So all is to say, it seems like from a talent standpoint, it's going in the right direction. I mean, one of the interesting things to me is, because talking about this with some friends, it's the inverse a little bit right now, but it's the inverse of the problem that we just kind of made fun of, where all the talent in the NFL going to the NFL was on one side of the ball. Well, it's kind of that way under Brent Venables with just everybody basically going from the defense. But as a reminder, especially that 2021 recruiting class. That was awful. It was a terrible albatross of a class in terms of how highly rated it was, but you just go down the list, bust. And a lot of those busts were on offense. And unfortunately, one of those busts was the quarterback, and that ruins you for, that could ruin a coaching staff if they bust on a 5-star quarterback like OU did with Jackson Arnold.
You meant the 2023 class. Yeah, 2023 class. Yes. Okay.
2023 class. Yeah. Excuse me. Jeff Lebby, it appears, is just a very, very bad evaluator because a lot of those players just did not pan out whatsoever. And so now the hope is whether it be Ben Arbuckle or, like you mentioned, Peyton, Jim Nagy and this newly fleshed out front office and scouting department and all that can help bridge the gap between, if Brent identifies a 2-star linebacker from like Christian Moore, 0-star linebacker from Selma, Alabama, I don't question it. I'm sure he's good because it's Brent Venables. So I'm going to err on the side of he knows what he's looking at, but maybe a little bit of the blind spot in terms of offensive evaluation can be picked up by the offensive staff plus the front office staff. So, real quick, Peyton, is it too fanboyish to say 7, 8, 9 guys could get drafted next year, or is that, fairly realistic?
In the past, I would say that might be a little fanboyish because there's always 20, 30 guys from East Popcorn State who somehow gets drafted, in the first 5 rounds or something like that. But now you're seeing that G6 stuff just doesn't exist at an NFL draft at that point in time. Or you could say their draft was the year the year prior's portal, and then they were picked up by a P4 team, and now was the first draft of that. I just counted on the roster, and this is now I want to give you the super. If the absolute OU goes undefeated, wins the national championship, all the big players play, all of them perform, all that kind of stuff, I could back of napkin get you to 12 guys. If everybody's great, right? They're going okay, he's gonna go. Now that'd be dreadful for the program. I don't know if they're putting in that more sort of roster. I think Oklahoma, if you're an Oklahoma fan, I think 5 to 6, 6 to 7, wouldn't be that much of isn't that big of a departure from reality at that point in time. Now, I'm someone who's always going to downplay Oklahoma's NFL potential, just due to Oklahoma generally gets very good football players, right? And at times that also then correlates with some of them being very top 0.01% athletes. That's not always the case, though. LSU's always going to get guys, even if they're a bad football team, because they're all super uber freaks, right? Same thing for Florida. Florida had a bunch of NFL guys on the roster. R. Mason Thomas, who we were all SEC player, defensive player of the year type of a guy, getting a bunch of sacks. But then you stack him up against some of these other guys who weren't as productive. He's not as fast. He's not as tall. He's not as big. Some of the real metric stuff that really stick out to NFL GMs just don't usually hit on some of OU's big time players. But that said, I don't know. David Stone's kind of a big guy. Jaden Jackson's kind of a big guy. Maybe Oklahoma has more freakish athletic talent on the roster than I'm giving it credit for.
I understand the let's throw caution on it, because I remember, would this have been going into the 2021 season, early through the Keyhole days, where Keegan and I were on a podcast, and he was a lot more optimistic about it than I was. But I think he had said something or we had, as a podcast, said something like, man, you could send up to 10 or 11 guys to the draft. And I think only 6 or 7 got drafted, which is still a good number. But just for some context, because take a shot, I wrote about this on Sooners on SI. Here are the players that are going to be out of college eligibility that, based on a few factors, could be drafted. And of course, the criteria is they have good seasons or meet expectations. So Marion Harris, tackle from Arkansas, Hayden Hansen, Isaiah Satania, Jacoby Johnson, John Mateer, Kip Lewis, Owen Heineke, PJ Adebarwe, Peyton Bowen, Rocky Beers, and Trell Harris. Then the guys who are more than likely going to leave early, David Stone, Jaden Jackson, Taylor Wine. If Taylor has another season like he did last year, I think it would be very hard for him to say no to a potential first round or second round draft pick. And then the surprises, like if they have monster seasons, it might be like, oh no, Cole Sullivan, great size. Danny Okoye is just a freak of nature. And if he can put it together, it would be very hard for him to say no to the NFL draft. But if he does have a monster season, he could then come back and be a surefire top 10 pick. He's that talented. Jermichael Carter, because he's not really done much, but in the few times he has been asked to do something, it's pretty spectacular, and he's got great size. Parker Livingston, for the same reasons, great size, good speed. Reggie Powers, great size, physical. And then Tate Sandell, just because kickers, do they ever get drafted? Well, there was one kicker drafted in this draft, 2 in the previous draft. And I believe the last few Lou Groza Award winners have been drafted. So I guess it would just technically be a surprise if Tate Sandell is drafted, just because it's very rare for kickers anyway. But Alan, going back to you, I mean, I don't know. Like, it still feels a little odd to sit here and say, like, yeah, they could have 9, 10, 11 guys drafted next year, because that would then put even more pressure on this team that we all recognize is probably very good, but has just absolute difficult schedule as it stands right now. It could prove to be simpler and easier to navigate once the games start getting played. But as it stands right now, oh boy, especially those first 5 weeks. So it feels a little scary to say they have all this talent, but then you do some mental gymnastics and you look at the schedule. If you do a preseason prediction, go, 8-4, because all that talent and 8-4, while realistically, sure, the schedule is hard, but if you have that much talent, you need to go 9-3 or 10-2 at least. Come on, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like OU's 8-4. It would be. Looking at some of the schedules the teams have, for example, in the Big Ten, right? I feel like if you were going into the Big Ten schedule, drawing the average one there with what OU has, you probably tack on 2 wins. I think probably. I mean, to what you'd be projecting. So it's just, I don't know. It feels like this is just going to be life in the SEC from here on out. Again, for all the talk about the Big Ten closing the gap, and I read Barry Trammell's piece today about how the Big Ten did so much better in the first round. Well, I mean, a difference of about nearly 20 draft picks. In 1 year, and on top of that, you're talking about 2 fewer teams in the SEC than the Big Ten. I mean, there's just so much talent in that conference. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be one of those things where I could very easily see OU just winning 8 games this year and still having a very good season, having a very good team. It's just how it is.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much time on looking ahead to the season, because we'll have plenty of time to do that over the next few months. But, I mean, I'll just say this generally. Like, you're right, Alan, but if you're good, you need to have just a really good day against a good team then and go 9-3. Because if you, at the end of the day, when the dust settles, if you just basically beat all the teams that you were supposed to, and anytime you were on an even playing field with somebody that had just as much talent as you, if not maybe slightly more, I mean, come on, Sooner Magic. Like, Sooner Magic your way to a victory. Like, that would just, to me, be very – what?
No, I mean, okay. No, I mean, it's just – I don't know. What if you lose 4 games by a field goal? The
example
on the road.
The example I always bring up is the 2012 season, where OU played Kansas State, who, like, at the time it was an upset, but as the season wore along, Kansas State won the Big 12. I mean, they shared it with OU, but they beat OU in Norman. So they proved to be a better team than they were projected that season. Then OU played Notre Dame and lost in Norman and got thoroughly kind of outplayed. and then they played Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. So all this to say, like they played, if you look at their schedule, they played 3 good teams. Texas is always Texas, and they're always talented, but at the end of the Mac Brown era, no. They played 3 good teams, and they lost to all of them, and they got destroyed by one of them. They got outplayed by the other, and then they made a bunch of mistakes against Kansas State and lost. And then when I look back at that season, it's just like they were talented, and they played 3 good teams, and they lost to them. That's a disappointment to me. So, I mean, I don't know. It gives me a little bit more fear projecting the schedule, considering how much talent we think that they're going to have at key positions. But
well, I think you have to change if you're an OU fan, and you directly, Brady. That's a mindset that's rooted in the past, and that past is not the present, right? Florida was a bad football team last year. Florida had just as many draft picks as Oklahoma and higher draft picks across the board than Oklahoma. Florida, according to NFL Draft, was a more talented football team than Oklahoma was, right? That's the difference. Like, you're not only like Florida may be a bad win-loss record team next year. They're going to have a lot of fucking talent on that team, though. And to me, that's just the difference. Like, something can just happen. It's like, Texas was a decent to good team last year, and they just got shellacked by Florida just randomly because they had a really good defensive line. And like, well, there you go on that side of it. Those Big 12 teams were not talented in the way Oklahoma was. But Oklahoma was able to out-talent the bad teams and then get beat by the good teams on that side. There's a point I saw that SEC show posted. Oregon faced 35 NFL players via the draft, right, of this past year, and Oklahoma faced 50. And some of that is that Oregon played Indiana twice. So it's like Oklahoma just the road it has to sow or whatever, or however that the saying is just harder now than it was back then. Now, that said, Oklahoma itself has raised its talent profile to a level in which it can just compete week in, week out in the SEC. But I mean, Oklahoma last year, what was the final score last year at the South Carolina game?
I think they won by like 10,
28 to 10 or 28 to 13 or something like that.
What does that game look like if the star potentially 1-1 defensive end doesn't go out like in the first quarter? Just like it's potentially different, right? I mean, in Oklahoma was able to dodge some bullets, and it was able to, also shoot some people themselves, to kind of get to that 10-2. But to me, it's just the overall amount of talent Oklahoma plays, regardless if they're good or bad. It's just a harder thing for me to say, oh yeah, 10-2, easy, write it down. Like in the Big 12 teams, if Oklahoma didn't go 10-2, I'm like, something massively wrong happened. At that point in time, because you're playing just a bunch of lawyers or whatever. It's I saw a thing earlier where this is a Spurs thing, so I'm sorry, where all these guys are doing TikTok stuff, and people are like, in 20 years, people are going to say Wemby played against a bunch of TikTok influencers. Like, yeah, probably.
That's so funny.
But it's just Oklahoma was just playing against a bunch of those somebody goes pro in something type of teams across the board. Now they're playing against teams that half the roster are NFL guys, regardless if they're 6-6 or 8-4, and that's just harder. That's just a harder thing to. Part of Sooner magic is that Oklahoma was always the more talented team on the field, and that they could just fumble around and win some of that stuff.
Not those Nebraska games, and a lot of Sooner magic came from those Nebraska games.
And I speak for myself from like a go for it.
Well, I was gonna say also like. One thing I definitely do agree with Brady is like OU has now made the move to the SEC to be in this situation, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is OU now, like, for a long time there in the Big 12, for example, OU was getting smashed when they got to the playoffs. But you know what? OU had a better team than everybody else they were facing in the Big 12. But not the SEC. And a big reason why they didn't have as good a team as the SEC is because they weren't going into recruiting hotbeds and saying, hey, come play in the SEC where all the NFL guys are. I mean, OU now has positioned itself where if we expect this program to be what it is, they need to be taking advantage of all these opportunities now too. It's just the kind of thing though where like OU has to up its game because what's around them now is so much harder.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like maybe like my argument was coming from a place of, I guess, essentially technicalities, because what I'm talking about is what is the expectation for your team going into a season? Because the SEC, you guys are right. Like the talent level is much higher. So OU isn't just out talenting teams, but because they're in the SEC, they were able to get these defensive players that have eluded them for the previous decade to up their own talent level. So it balances it out just a little bit more on paper, make you feel better about it. But going into last season, coming off of a 6-7 year, if OU had played, I mean, who were the best teams on OU schedule that ended up being the best teams? So Texas, Alabama, Tennessee,
Ole Miss.
I would say Ole Miss. Yeah.
So there were 3 teams that were like kind of far and away the better overall teams: Texas, Ole Miss, and Alabama. OU technically played them 4 times, but they played them 3 times in the regular season. OU won one of those games. So to me, that kind of puts them well over their expectation. But because they were coming off of a 6-7 season the year previous, if they had lost 3 of those games, it would have been frustrating in the moment. Once the season ended, you kind of look back and go, I mean, guys, we came back from a 6-7 season. What the fuck did you expect? So now that you go 10-2, if you follow that up with an 8-4 season, and let's just say that Michigan, Georgia, Texas, and Texas A&M, at the end of the season, they're far and away the 4 best teams that OU ended up playing that season. If OU loses to all 4 of them, going into a year with, we're talking about 10 draft picks and all this expectation, and they have got experience all over the place, that to me would be a grave disappointment. It would be an absolute disappointment. And that's even with the understanding that it's harder in the SEC. And that would be with the understanding with this schedule in particular is very hard. But again, you yourself, OU, are talented and you have, all these draft picks that we kind of talked about. How did you not Sooner magic your ass to one of those victories to put you into a 9-3 conversation, which again, wouldn't get OU into the playoffs. So I'm not really asking for much. I'm just asking for at least show that you're also a good team, and that maybe just a play or 2 went the opposite direction against Georgia or against Texas. And at the end of the day, you're just like, hey, we played well, got outplayed by a really good team. But you know what? We kicked ass in other games. And against this other really good team, OU showed up and played well. So that's what I'm arguing for, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. But even the quote unquote bad teams, if you're going to consider Tennessee's a bad team because they went 8-4, I mean, Oklahoma didn't put them away. They didn't put away Missouri. Now you could say, and it's easy to say, well, my quarterback had a broken thumb. So there you go. It's, to me, the broken thumb potentially mask over a bunch of stuff where Oklahoma wasn't really able to fully separate itself from the middle class of the SEC in a way I would have liked it to have done. So to me, they weren't able to separate from middle class. And when they played the top tiers, they went 1-4, right? Is that what we're saying? Lost to Texas, lost to Ole Miss, lost to Alabama once. They beat Alabama. So 1-3?
Yeah.
So they played 4 good teams. They only won 1 time. In the middle class of the SEC, that's usually a 1-possession game. I want to see them to me, the next step is you go to Michigan, you win by 10. You go to Kentucky and you win by 14. You start putting some of these teams in the rearview mirror. That's when I'm like, okay, we've gotten to the point where you could just beat the middle class. You're no longer right now. Oklahoma's a middle class team that was able to Sooner magic its way to 10-2 to a certain degree. I want to see it to where they are having there's the Sooner magics happening in those 4 games against the really good teams, on that side of it. Not like a last second interception against Auburn to win the game, or getting a safety against Jackson Arnold because he decides to stand still for 15 seconds, for a safety. That to me is the next step forward for Oklahoma. I think they're about to make that step, but I would be hesitant to just say, based on last year's results, of just saying, oh yeah, they've already cleared the bar. They've already answered the test. They've met it. They've done it. They are a couple bounces away from 8-4 themselves last year. That didn't happen, but they played with their food too much, or they didn't have the ability to separate themselves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it was playing with their food, man. I think that they were just
the offensive line was bad, no running backs.
There was one
moment
coalesces.
They're great.
There was one moment where they
Tennessee
played with their food, and it was Tennessee. And
Yeah.
it was interesting because, like, you're right, they didn't put Tennessee away, but that was the most. I mean, I was very comfortable in the stadium of that game. Like, oh, this is OU's day. Like, they're winning, and it really seemed that way until Arbuckle called the play, or John Mateer made the wrong read and threw the ball for an interception. That opened the door. Tennessee scores, but then OU scores essentially one play later because they were the much better team than Tennessee, at least on that night. But again, those are the expectations I'm going into this season. The expectations I had going into last season, Peyton, were just beat the middle class of the SEC and, hope for the best in big games. And fortunately for OU, they won one of those games. So now my expectation is, well, you've proven to be better than the middle class of the SEC, so continue to do that. While also, hey, you beat one team, now beat two teams. So that's my expectation. And whether that ends up 10-2 or 11-1, you hope for the best, but at the end of the day, it might not. So
it's in my mind, it's 10-2, and you don't beat. In my mind, Oklahoma has a 3-game schedule next year on the top side, and I think they probably go 1-2 on those 3 games. But it is what it is. I mean, the Georgia Texas, it's going to be tough to split, and it's right back. In my mind, it's Michigan, Texas, Georgia. And I just see that as a 1-2. Then I could eat, and then you can lose one game for the rest of that schedule, and it's just a lot of talent not to lose a game. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. But to me, this conversation feels like it's in a nutshell of the Missouri game that you and I had a disagreement on last year. Of you're like, Missouri has proven themselves not to be good enough. OU has proven themselves to be good enough. Oklahoma should win, and they should cover. And Oklahoma just struggled through that game for the entirety of it because they couldn't run.
And they tried.
They tried to also lose that game.
Yeah.
But to me, the next step is, now you beat Missouri by 4. You beat Missouri by 2 scores. Something like that. You have separated yourself. So then you could be like that Georgia. People are like, well, no, check this out. And then you check in the fourth quarter, they're up by 20. It's like, okay, well, that was fun for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, this all started from the NFL draft conversation, but it's a part of the larger picture here, so it makes sense that we went that route. But trying to get back a little bit. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we got plenty of time, but trying to get back a little bit to back to the 2026 NFL draft. I mean, Alan, you had already mentioned Kendall Daniels. Peyton, did you have a particular player that you were excited about or questioned that they went earlier or later than you thought, or maybe you just like the fit for the player in this particular organization? Any individual player thoughts?
I mean, I guess RSJ, to me, in my opinion, went low, but then I guess I was higher on him as a football player than others. I mean, I guess his 40 time saved him. I mean, I thought the 40 time was going to put him into the 5th round, not into he gets him into the last round of the draft. But I guess if you remember, all the big busts usually happen because he didn't get to play in, or he didn't hear this, that part of it. So maybe that's some of it, to where there's some question of scheme, or some question of what he's asked to do, or some coverage. He wasn't the strongest in coverage, but damn, he was fast, I guess. Didn't necessarily always show up on the field. So there may have been some question of, and if you're a back end player, speed is great. You need to have it, but it's probably a better asset to have, of knowing where you should be in the first place. And maybe that's probably what caused him to draft to fall back on that side. To me, that's a surprise. I thought he'd go up. And then honestly, after all the talk and all the buzz, and we even discussed this the last time I was on the podcast, I was like, who would rise? Would R. Mason fall more in context of where you think should go, or would a Grayson rise more? And they both basically did the same. Holton didn't rise as much as they thought, and R. Mason didn't drop as much as they thought. So maybe that. I thought Grayson had kind of got his way into like a 3rd round pick or something like that. But going into the 4th was a little surprising on my side. But I guess if you really, really look at it, you say, oh, yeah, Brent Venables did all these stunts and allowed him to get wide open to go crush a quarterback. Maybe he's not winning a lot of these things 1-1 or 2-on-1s and stuff like that. Those were scheme sacks maybe or something like that. But somebody had to have him. And that's not to say he's like a Reggie Grimes guy. I mean, he obviously is talented and has, athletic capability. But if you're an NFL guy and you're really, really looking at it and you're looking at what Brent's doing by run first and overloading the box and doing some stuff. I know, Alan, you had a really good podcast of Cody Alexander where the NFL guys might be going like, yeah, he's good, but we're not doing any of that. We'll just get crushed. I mean, in the back end, we have to cover some of these wide receivers, so he's going to have to win one-on-one battles on his own. That might be something to where some of those stats, those counting stats, may have not translate.
Hey, Brady, quick question, Brady.
Yeah.
In your more official type reporting position, I mean, was there anything out there about Deion Burks, like medically? I mean, that I think that had to be part of whatever contributed to his fall. I would think, but
that I've heard, going into the draft, no. That anybody on Sooners on SI, at least that when we kind of chat about it, no. Frankly, to me, like the surprise is like I just kind of bought into some of the buzz about Deion Burks because he ran the 4.3 at the combine. I didn't think that he has enough production on film to demand to be drafted, but he's a receiver that can run a 4.3. That's very attractive to GMs. So I thought, I don't think he's going to get drafted based on what we've seen, but someone probably is falling in love with the fact that he can run really fast in a straight line. So what do I know? We had a patron actually ask us on the Patreon page about this very subject. And I kind of told him, typically when a player falls like this, and there's like rumors of like some medical stuff that you've never heard of prior, it's one of two things. One, it's completely made up and has no basis in fact whatsoever. Or two, it's a concussion thing. Because concussions, if you're already injured, or if you get a concussion during practice, like if you basically get a concussion behind closed doors, it's very easy for institutions and programs to not necessarily hide it, but it's a very sensitive subject. Derek Simmons had multiple concussions last year, and that was a little bit more kind of well known among like the media and even among the fan base. But a lot of those concussions kind of occurred during the week of practice. And so when you remember that Deion Burks missed 7 or 8 games in 2024, and the disclosedness of those injuries were just like leg injuries, like, right, were they? For all we know, because of how that season went, a player like Deion Burks probably is like, I'm dealing with some other things. I don't know if I want to necessarily come back in this offense, or maybe he does try to ramp it up in practice, and then he probably got a concussion. That is me just guessing. I have no inside information whatsoever, no reporting. I'm reading the situation, and that's typically where my brain goes. Oh, it's either made up, the medical thing, or it's, there's some undisclosed injuries. And sometimes, and a lot of times, I feel like the undisclosed injuries are concussions because they're easier to hide, because it's not like my leg's broken or I can't run anymore. It's like, it goes away after. I mean, don't ask Victor Wembanyama about concussions, but whatever. I will say that here's a weird read.
Bubble water, Russell Wilson.
Here's a weird read I have on the Deion Burks conversation. Have you guys at all listened to Gabe and Teddy's podcast from Sunday, where they're talking about the players drafted?
I haven't yet. No.
So they talked about Deion Burks, and I get it. Like they have to have, they can't reveal everything that they know because, they technically work for the program, Sooner Sports or whatever. Mm-hmm. They have access. They put out their inside information, sometimes very blatantly, sometimes in like cookie crumbs so that you, the listener, have to put it together yourself. But they're not going to go out there and say like, this guy got hurt on Tuesday, because it's not what they're supposed to be doing. So I'm not criticizing that whatsoever. But listening to them talk about Deion Burks, and I'm not saying this is an insult, they played dumb when it came to like the character issue question. Like, does Deion Burks have a character issue problem? And I say that because they would know if he has a character issue or not. They would know that for a fact. And when the question came up, they were like, I don't know. I feel like if he didn't have a character issue at all, they would be like very adamant about, no, he's a fantastic person. I don't know why that rumor even exists. Like, Deion Burks is a pillar of the community. And I'm not saying that he isn't. I'm just saying when I was listening to that, I was kind of waiting for Gabe or Teddy to say, yeah, like, I don't know where the character issue problems are coming from. Now, maybe I'm giving them, and this is not an insult whatsoever, but maybe I'm giving them a little too much credit about what I think that they should know. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm giving them or assuming too much that they should know the ins and outs of how Deion Burks acts because of the access that they have. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't have that much of a close relationship with every single player on the roster, like I'm assuming that they do. So I'm just saying, like, as a listener of their show, I found that interesting. But
it's also hard for me to, I mean, Teddy, Gabe, and I mean, I know you guys are listening, but it's also hard for me to take some of these people seriously when it's like, Jackson Arnold's the best football player we've seen, you know. Then he gets benched. Actually, it was Michael Hawkins who was the good one. It's like, it's hard for me to even just like sometimes take any statement now I'm getting from like an OU sponsored media thing, cross this the line with any level of anything, after the Jackson Arnold Hawkins stuff kind of went down and everything like that. And things are changed now because it's, and Gabe's a little different. Teddy's a little different. They don't rely on subscribers to be excited about the program, all that kind of stuff, to then buy in for insider stuff and everything like that. But it is just tough for me to kind of feel on some things, because to me, it's probably right. I maybe Burks just didn't hang out with those guys, right? I mean, and they truly don't know him on that level. But and they're also the same people who wouldn't fully. I mean, did they ever like fully go off on? I guess they did. I mean, go off on Ott or something like that, who we can get to.
Yes, yeah. Again, like in the few run-ins I've had with Deion Burks as a reporter, like he seems to have a very positive outlook on life. He has a very good energy about him, and I'm not sitting here trying to suggest that he does have character issues. Again, I'm just saying, listening to that show, I kept waiting for oh no, there are no character issues whatsoever. So that was just my read on the situation. Again, it's good that he got drafted, but he's going to have an uphill battle as a 7th round pick. And it's even more of an uphill battle when you remember, I don't ever recall seeing that 4.3 speed on display. I hope he does well. He was a good player when he was able to play. He was a good teammate. I don't think that there are character issues. Again, I'm just saying that I was shocked to not hear that kind of put to bed very quickly. Yeah, speaking of interesting character issues, Jade Knott to the Kansas City Chiefs as an undrafted free agent to reunite with his best buddy, Mr. DeMarco Murray, the Chiefs' new running back coach. Alan, is this too good to be true?
Of all the places he could end up, man. I mean, of course you're getting some, after the fact kind of analysis of what really happened there with the Ott situation. But, man, it's just, I mean, to me, it seems fairly clear that he did not have a champion in his corner in DeMarco Murray. So, the idea that he'd end up with DeMarco Murray in his new place, I mean, it's just wild, man. Like, I guess, I mean, it doesn't speak very well of his the likelihood he's going to make the team, I guess, right?
Yeah. Maybe I'm ignorant to this, and maybe it's not the same across the board with all 32 NFL teams, but I'm going to assume that a rookie positional coach had very little to do with the decision to pick up Jade Knott. Now, I'm sure DeMarco was I'm sure he was asked about him. And I just cannot find any reality where DeMarco had glowing reviews about him, unless all they said was, we don't care what you think about his character. We don't care what you think about him as a football player. What are his physical traits? Tell us now. And then he would say, well, he can run a 4.5, 4.4, and he's big and blah, 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 and all those things. Okay, we're going to sign him as an undrafted free agent. What? That is to me how the extent of that conversation went with DeMarco Murray, because again, I don't know. I just assume positional coaches are, in terms of the players that are drafted or brought in via free agency, we will set you up with the players we expect you to coach.
Right. I mean, my guess is that DeMarco will have a say in whether or not he's on the roster again.
Yes.
So,
but I don't. It was a joke among everybody with an opinion about OU football or Jade Knott, and knowing that DeMarco Murray went to Kansas City. Wouldn't it be funny if Kansas City drafted him? I guess I was a little surprised that Ott wasn't drafted just because of the physical ability, if he's healthy, and because of the production in the first 2 seasons, because it was phenomenal production in his freshman and sophomore years. But whether it was the combination of his last year at Cal and then his no-show year at OU, or just the no-show year at OU, he doesn't get drafted at all and ends up going as an undrafted free agent. But I don't know. I hate to sit here and say I don't wish him well, but I guess Jade Knott should have just never transferred. The funny thing, and this is not even that related, but did y'all see that OU lost a 2027 running back who decommitted, committed to Cal? How much y'all want to bet that Jade Knott was basically just like, hey, they take football very seriously down there. I would suggest not going there, because if you make one mistake, they're on your ass until death, unless you correct yourself very quickly. They are on your ass until death. So go west, young man. But
and also, I mean, dude, wasn't it reported that Ben Arbuckle maintained the rotations, with buy-in from position coaches, but then when it was under Levy, the position coaches had more rotation authority or something like that?
Arbuckle still does he still does the if you ask about rotations or player personnel decision making, he does the canned you'll have to talk to DeMarco, or you'll have to talk to Jason Witten about that. Ha ha ha, knowing full well that we're not going to be able to. So the question will just remain unanswered.
Yeah. Okay. Then this is a glitch in the system. I thought there was some sort of thing where he said he had, but it was a joint effort type thing.
Again, though, I don't get the impression that Arbuckle was particularly overwhelmed by what Ott was doing to make his case to get on the field. So,
yeah, I mean, remembering what all the things Ben Arbuckle said, because Brent Venables was a little bit more closer to reality when he was asked about Ott, because he would say things like, you wish he was a little bit further along. It was as close as he could get to criticizing his own player. Ben Arbuckle would, when he was asked, he would just kind of sit there and smile and say, he's in a great headspace. He's in a good place. He's in a good place. He's in a good place. Meaning that he's not committed football suicide, I assume, because judging by what Ben Arbuckle said, which was kind of a ball of optimism compared to what Jade Knott himself told us at Pro Day, where he kind of verified the overall timeline of he got hurt during fall camp. And then the other side of the coin was DeMarco and the coaches felt like, okay, you're hurt, but you're not that hurt and you can play through it. So go out there and do it, because that's what we're paying you for. And that's your role in the team. And he was like, no, I'm straight. Okay, we're just not going to play you then. It's see ya. We're just watch us play mummified Xavier Robinson and knocked out Torrey Blaylock. Watch us do it. But, no longer OU's problem. And if he makes the 53-man roster and gets to say Jade Knott, running back, he'll say the University of California. So, I mean, all for it. But if he has a really fantastic career somehow, the running back graphic with Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray, Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, and Jade Knott's face slapped on it out of OU social media accounts will hit like crack. It will be amazing to see if that day does come. Any other, we talked about it for a while. Any final thoughts from anything concerning OU in the draft, gentlemen? Well, moving on. We've gone an hour, so I don't know how long you want to do on this, Peyton, but for the non-patrons, because again, we'll put this is the free show, and then it'll be on YouTube after we're live. For those that have not checked out your post-game thoughts on the spring game from a few weeks ago, do you want to go over the DeZeph Walker madness from the spring game and the hype of his play? Or is there anything else that you wanted to kind of focus on moving forward now that you've been a few weeks removed from this game?
No. Yeah, if you go check out patreon.com/through the keyhole and subscribe to it, you should be able to find the write-up if you want to get some full detail stuff on there. But to me, the big breakout was Z. I even saw the hand signal if you're, that he does after the scoring the touchdown. It's the issue of, for him, not an issue. He has a flexibility in the hips that reminds me a lot of a Trey Sermon, who's able to kind of run along the line without turning the full body. He's able to swivel in his upper body. He's able to kind of like stay steady while his lower body acts independent of that, which allows him to kind of navigate some stuff, which is really interesting to see. Oklahoma's running backs, including our presumed 2 starting guys, don't have a lot of wiggle to them. They have a lot of run into somebody in them. Walker has a little more make a guy miss or kind of fight its way through a hole, a little bit more of a patient runner. Does not have a breakaway speed that you would like to have at an Oklahoma football team. Maybe that's happened. Maybe he's got that on that side. But you also have to trust Brent Venables, who's saying we've got the most, explosive runs this spring than we've had the last 3 years combined or something like that. So to me, any of that stuff is just showing the progression of the offensive line. But just from a spring game, watching him run the ball, watching just Oklahoma just run the football. But then on a structural level, Oklahoma just basically had 2 tight ends on the field at all times, right? Now, technically, and I took track of that, they're in 11 or 12 basically the entire time. Some of the times they were in 11 is because they had John Locke Jr. out there at the X position. Like, I counted that as a 10 because it's like, or whatever, because I was like, more than likely that would have been a wide receiver, if they had the full complement of wide receivers, on the play. But majority of the time, they have 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends at times on the football field. So if you're thinking Oklahoma's like, it's John Mateer's, his hand's good, he's good to go, we're staying in 10 the entire time, which is one running back, 4 wide receivers. I would say Oklahoma is going to be a downhill running football team, and John Mateer is going to be asked to throw the ball 15 times, right? To me, that's where, based on what that looked like, that's what that was moving to in my mind, where Oklahoma is just going to run the football a lot. And then all 3 of these tight ends are good. So it's not just like we're just rolling dudes out because we have to. They're just bodies or something like that. So it looks like Oklahoma's trying to identify itself as more of a running football team, more of a downhill guy, more of a team that's going to wear you down, which does reflect a defensive coordinator head coach.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense. So it does seem like that's going to be there. And then it is we hit, outside zone. That's something that Oklahoma has not seen. The pistol was back, and Oklahoma's ran a lot of outside zone. Oklahoma ran inside zone a lot last year. This was they were getting a pistol and they're handing the ball off, running off tackle. It was really nice to see. As an old school Denver Broncos fan, very nice to see the outside zone run effectively during the spring game. But John Mateer just looks like John Mateer. I'm still working on the series where I'm going to go through all the football games that he played last year. He's still just John Mateer, and that's good. That's good. It could be bad. That's one of the reasons why I'm not sitting there saying 10-2 for sure. Lock it down. I think he's got some. Let me lose this game for us in him, but he also has some. He's got some fight in him as well.
Yeah, like we kind of mentioned earlier with that conversation. OU is winning by the skin of their teeth against most of the middle class of the conference, and then the few times that when they beat Alabama. So the next step is, will be up by 10 or 13 or 14 points, so that John Mateer's mistake in the end of the game won't bite you in the ass as much. So, I mean, just all about increasing your margin for error. Alan, any other like bigger spring game thoughts now that we've been a few weeks removed from it now?
No, not really. Just I've been enjoying all the coverage you guys have been able to provide of it. So,
yeah, I mean, DeZeph Walker, we could all rattle off a handful of guys who blew up in the spring game only to do little to nothing. And only one of them was truly surprising that it didn't lead to anything, because Trey McGuire's like 2011 spring game was awesome. Like NFL catches, hang time, leap, hands, route running, everything. I was like, that dude is going to win an award of some kind. He's going to be an All-American. And then it just fall happened, and he just, even before he jerked off in public, I mean, just looked like a completely different person on the field.
I was going to say, he definitely had a real surprise waiting for us, you know. I mean,
yeah, I'm just talking about on the field. And it was, I mean, he could have not done that and played for a year or two at OU. And I don't know if it would have really led to much. It was so surprising, the drop off from what we saw in the spring game that year to the actual season. But with the DeZeph Walker, knowing that the onus is going to be on the running game, like Peyton mentioned, seeing his ability, like he's going to find some playing time. And especially with, like, we all think and hope Xavier Robinson is going to be fine. And we all hope that he can remain healthy, but that's just not been the case for him. And it's not been the case for Torrey Blaylock in just 1 year. Hopefully that changes. But if any one of them gets hurt, then it seems like DeZeph Walker is prepared for the challenge. And he wasn't as hyped up after the spring game, but I thought Jonathan Hatton looked awesome too. So I think OU's in good hands, again, with some freshmen, but they're in good hands in the running back department. So excited about daydreaming about that for the next handful of months. Any other OU thoughts at all? None. Somewhat OU, but I had to look this up because I was writing something and I had to make sure I made a correct jab at the expense of DeMarco Murray and his recruiting, developing, and coaching time during OU. If you were wondering, wait, is Taylor Tatum really playing defense, or was that just a rumor started online that someone ran with, and that's just been kind of the going notion that, yeah, he's playing defense, but it's not actually based in fact. Taylor Tatum did play safety in the maize and blue game for Michigan. He had 2 tackles and a pass breakup. So the number 1 running back in the country, actually a safety. So I don't want to hear any more that DeMarco was a good recruiter, because I see very little skins on the wall to suggest good recruiter. He's just handsome. Any other college football thoughts, guys? Not a lot. I mean, the NCAA, I guess, sent in their appeal to have Owen Heineke's decision reversed. I guess they sent it on the wrong piece of paper, and now they have to like send it in on the correct piece of paper or something like that. I don't know. And Owen Heineke's team is like asking for the state Supreme Court to throw it out because they sent it in on the wrong piece of paper. I don't know. Been a little star for college football news, and I couldn't really find any, but did I miss something?
So there's some big going down at Texas Tech.
See, I honestly was hoping we weren't going to talk about this, because I just hate, I don't hate it. I'm just so bored about sports gambling, and admittedly it's because I'm not into it. I don't even consider, like, what's the point spread? I know that is technically connected to sports gambling. To me, it's just like a natural conclusion you come to as a sports fan. That team is about 2 touchdowns better than that other team. So that's kind of how I view point spreads. Anything more than that, I'm just like, it's not interesting to me. I don't gamble at all. When people have issues with alcohol, I at least understand it, because I drink, and fortunately, I don't have a problem with it, but I can understand, like, this is a slippery slope if you're not careful. As a non-sports gambler, I don't see why you would ever jeopardize anything if you're college or professional athlete like the Sorsby kid did, or Terry Rozier in the NBA. I don't understand it. So maybe you guys can help me understand.
Oh, I mean, it's just dopamine and serotonin. I mean, it's the exact same thing as alcoholism. It's the same thing as any addiction. I mean, it just clicks. You're going, hey, I like winning. Winning's cool. Over and over and over again. And
money.
Gambling, you're never winning over and over and over again.
No. Yeah, true.
So.
No. There's
then again, I guess no. If you can affect the outcome of a game,
if you can win, what if you can always win? No. There's a study that came out recently because I was listening to a podcast, This American Life, about gambling addiction, and it says if let's say you're at the slot and you pull a lever and it's cherry 7, right? You almost win. That brain response is actually more exciting than if you were to actually win. Like what happens in the brain chemistry, what happens in your brain, almost winning is either the same or more like engaging than actually winning the bet. So if you're doing ball strikes, you know what I'm saying, you're getting that, oh, come on. Like there's a brain, like there, you have to go to, at his level, he will need to go to therapy. He will need to go to a place on his own and rehab this stuff out. There's a brain response, a chemical response in his brain that is not allowing him to make correct decisions or place good bets. If he was winning all of these, we probably wouldn't hear about it. You only go in there if you're losing. So I mean, that's just a tough thing. And obviously coming from someone whose like main industry is built upon people gambling. So it's a tough position to be in. I see it a lot. You can hear these people who just it's the exact same thing as when you see pro athletes now broke. It's because they just kept making these decisions, right? And they were just not there. But yeah, no, it sucks for them. I would say a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't matter. They're going to go 11-1 anyway. Well, they played basically a backyard football league schedule, and they still lost the one time they didn't have their starting quarterback. So, and their current starting quarterback now is coming off of an ACL repair, who like might not be ready in this race. I don't know if I would just like go pencil him in. From 11-1, I'll go 10-2. Like it may just be worse. Or Cody goes out and buys a quarterback, and we just.
Yeah,
I thought I saw somebody like, really, what happens if
test the whole like, oh, no spring portal, like, ooh, I don't know, let's find out about that,
Oh, he's probably calling everybody up like, get that 5-5 now to start a little portal kickoff. Like this has to happen right now. We might see a lot more political spending coming out of West Texas.
The only thing I want to pencil in as it concerns Texas Tech is Jacob Rodriguez is the next Zach Thomas. Oh boy, I was so happy for that draft pick, because Caden Proctor, I was not happy for as a Miami Dolphins fan, but the rest of the draft, pretty good. Again, being a Dolphins fan truly sucks. Anything else, guys? That's about it then. All righty then. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening and watching along to Through the Keyhole. Truly appreciate it. Anything else, Peyton?
No.
Oh,
saying goodbye to the listeners.
You pulled up the mic. I thought you were wanting to say something.
No, I was going to do the boomer.
Okay, well, we're not there yet. Patreon.com/Through the Keyhole. Shout out to our patrons. If you ever want to jump in on the live stream, you just have to be a patron. So again, you can do it for free for a month. Try it out, and if you enjoy it, think about donating to the cause. We would greatly appreciate it, and we truly appreciate all of our patrons that join on the live stream and just continue to support us. We truly appreciate that. Keyholepod.com is the free website. Look for Alan Kinney's blatant homerism column for the next one. Look forward to that. And of course, Matt Burton not here, but we miss him dearly. He'll be back, I'm sure, next week, unless the Thunder are playing a playoff game against the Los Angeles Lakers. Real quick, Peyton, are you excited for the toxicity on this very show between you and Matt when those Western Conference Finals do occur?
I was listening to the Bomani Jones the right time. He's like, that's a lot of connecting flights if it's these two teams. It's very funny. It's like, and they're not even that far apart. So it's very funny. No, I think Matt and I will be pretty good. I am a part of a Red Dirt Sports Discord, and as like one of two Spurs fans, that is I'm not the most popular person who pops into the Thunder chat every once in a while being like, did you see Wemby last night? And everyone's like, wait until his leg snaps in half. It's like, okay. But no, and the thing is, I know Oklahoma fans are just generally toxic. As an Oklahoma fan myself from the Sooner side, the Thunder fans were probably a little at a different level of toxicity that I wasn't fully prepared for. But now that the Spurs are good, I'm getting hit by it by a lot more. But no, it's fun. It's fun. Sports hate's good, to be honest with you. And plus, I mean, and again, Alan, I saw you laughing about the stuff. Bomani's right. I mean, Wemby gets to have a warm up of just shoving Rudy Gobert out of the league. Like, goodbye, see you later, and then go like, all right, Chet, let's go. I mean, it's like it's set up for him to like to beat all the haters.
Oh God, he had a fantastic nickname for Chet. Oh God, I can't remember what it was, but it was.
Who did Wemby? Bomani?
Yeah, Bo. Yeah.
It was something like the tall man or something like that. Not a big man, tall man or something.
That's Karl Anthony Towns. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Let me ask you this, Peyton, because you would be the person to ask. Do you want your best player, potentially the best player in the world right now, definitely maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, do you really want him having a vendetta with the Thunder's third option? I mean, whatever works for him works for him.
No,
I'm not going to sit here and say that.
This feels a little hand wavers like that. I remember Michael Jordan having like hardcore rivalries of like the ball boy. So like, I want my best guy to not only lead the team, I want him to talk in front of the microphone. Not like Shea, who's like when the microphone's in front of him, he becomes like the most boring person of all time. But on Instagram, he's getting his hits off. Stand up, say it over chest, all the way through. I like that Wemby is who Wemby is in any platform, in any context, and the team is rallied around that on that side. But is it super beneficial? Who's he supposed to vibe with? I mean, Shea, who just like doesn't talk, or I don't know. To me, the two people you have a rivalry with are Chet and Dort, because those two dudes at any point, or whatever, the bald guy, those dudes will injure you at any point in time. Now I'm getting my hater takes off. No, I think whatever drives you. I think it's good. I wish Chet were better. I'll put it that way, to allow some of that to have some more national relevance. Because they're the two peoples whose faces are going to go on the TV graphics is not Chet and Wemby. So I wish he were better. Maybe I'll hold that. But Thunder fans, I wish Chet were better.
I mean, yeah, Michael is a psychopath on the floor, so he's going to find someone to have a vendetta against on any given night. But I don't think he was there a third tier player that he was just consistently, I'm going to go kick your ass. But again, like Michael was Michael. Wemby, while amazing and one of the best players in the world, they've not proven shit yet. And this is the same thing we would have said about the Thunder 2 years ago or even last year.
Oh, for sure.
So like they haven't proven shit yet, and the Thunder proved it. And I'm just hopefully that would be that's the case, because the Thunder, they still need to beat probably the Lakers in the second round. I just really hope, because I just think it's going to be a fantastic series, and it would just make the finals seem, even if it's the Celtics, whomever, it's the Spurs or the Thunder, just seem kind of boring, which is silly to say because the Celtics are also really good, but it's just like, no, I want Thunder Spurs to go 7. That would be so awesome.
And some of the stuff is, I don't know, like the only thing AI is telling me is the Chet code, which I don't think that's a funny nickname.
I thought it was maybe it was like Minnesota's most wanted.
Oh yeah, Minnesota's most wanted.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know. I'm about to get into this thing. Oklahoma City Thunder, I find to be a very boring team because they are very like Gen Z or whatever. Like, we don't talk in front of the microphone, and we just like, whatever. Like, all this is something cool. And I at least find Wemby talking about stupid shit at least to be engaging in some way, shape, or form. I mean, there was this is my one political point on the entire of this podcast. But after the stuff happened in Minneapolis, Chet from there was asked about it, and he couldn't even offer a response. While Paige in Dallas, who's also from there, gave a very lengthy response to it, and so did Wimby. And it's like, who's not from America? I'm checking my notes here. Was able to give like a very thought out spot to that stuff. And I'm just like, Chet, like, I get it. It's like, you're not supposed to say anything because it hurts the brand or something, but like, you're from there. Like, surely you have like I don't know, something to say. But that's the program at Oklahoma City. It's all buttoned up. No one makes mistakes. No one's interesting. But Wimby's interesting to me. But no, I guess to get back to it, I love toxicity when it comes to sports. That's a healthy level of toxicity in my life, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, like a general standpoint, if I don't have a rooting interest in a player or a team, I would prefer them to be outspoken because it gives me a reason to pay attention. So in that sense,
yeah, for sure.
Wimby is interesting to me because he does talk, but there are times where I'm like, why did you say that? Like, you almost swept the Thunder, and they're like, who gives a shit? Like, you should be well past that as a player, like in terms of your give a fuck meter. But he's still very, very young. So like when I stop and think about it, it makes sense with the Thunder. I mean, if I'm rooting for, like, if OU wins like a string of national championships, I would just love if they were boring and just cold fucking assassins. Like it's a different sport. It's football, so it calls for a little bit more visceral energy. But it would just be so nice to be like, I don't care what you think. I don't care if it's not aesthetically pleasing. Guess what? Undefeated. That's all I care about. That's what I would try to say to Thunder fans if someone asked me my opinion, is like, who cares if they say that you guys are foul baiters? Who cares if they say you're boring to watch? Guess what? You know what you have to explain? Nothing. You guys are champs. Just move forward.
And this is me coming as a Spurs fan who was like the most boring franchise who won 5 championships, and everyone's like, please, why this again? So I totally understand it. I totally get it. Like, there's that old NBA commercial where like Tim Duncan goes, I'm so excited, and like tips over a plant. Like, trust me, I totally understand. But we had Manu, and that was the entertainment part of it. And we had Bruce Bowen like ninja kicking people in the face. So like, I know a dirty player when I see one.
Tony Parker cheating.
So I totally get it.
Tony Parker cheating on his wife.
Tony Parker getting glass in the eye from a club fight where Drake was at, or something like that. I remember all that stuff.
I forgot about that.
He was never like the true Spur, but yeah.
Well, I've talked. That was my fault. We went on a little bit too long, but hopefully you all enjoyed a little bit of NBA talk because it's the NBA playoffs. So a lot of people are excited about it. But for the absent Matt Burton, the present Alan Kinney, Peyton Guthrie, myself, Brady Trentham, everybody, thank you so much for listening and watching Through the Keyhole. Until next time, Palmer.
Sooner.